I'm Gray Thompson, and you're listening to the Fête Football Podcast. I'm joined by Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan Davey McKnight, our sincere special guest this week.
Wow.
As well as our not-so-special guest, or special needs guest, I should say, Jay Spivey.
I'm the curmudgeon of college football.
With a capital C.
Yes. Thanks to the Velo Fellow for having us.
Very much.
Thanks to Pilsner Kill for making some of the greatest Pilsner that's ever existed on the planet.
Yes.
Oldest one, right?
Well, I guess.
Thanks to our sponsor, Sit and Spin Studios, right next door, the best damn studio in downtown
Matt Morgan,
Greenville.
the best damn studio man in the upstate, if not the country.
Yes, I agree with that. I'd vote for him.
Well, you know, this is college football. All the games, the real games, start this week, even though there have been a few penny, who care games. But the news.
Speak for yourself.
The news. And the news is Urban Thug Myers getting suspended for 3 games. But I read a couple of articles today, and it ticks me off to no end for a bunch of reasons. Number one, he has been taking medication that causes memory loss. No joke. It was released in a newspaper article today.
It's like a listed side effect of that medicine?
Yes. And
what medicine is that?
Do you think he's actually taking it? Or is that just...
No, it says he is taking medication that from time to time causes memory loss. The other thing, the cell phone that had deleted text messages on it belongs to Ohio State, and it is against the law to delete text messages that pertain to work at Ohio State. And he claims that he does not remember deleting text messages dealing with all the hullabaloo that's going on, but yet they were deleted by someone. This issue is not over.
That sounds like a weird one, because first of all, what difference does it make? Doesn't Verizon, for example, have a record of all his text messages?
That's why
anyway?
they know that the messages were there.
Yeah.
That's why he was reprimanded.
Yeah.
But his excuse was, I don't remember deleting the messages, and he's taking medication that causes memory loss.
Look, I'm not wearing a belt today because I forgot, and I'm not taking any medication for that too. It happens, but I'm not also paid $5 million a year. I think when you get paid $5 million a year, you prioritize your memory.
The highest paid employee in the state of Ohio either, because I mean he works for the state of Ohio technically.
Sure. Right.
So
an
and
Ohio
that's the problem.
State owned phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like somebody being like President of the United States and deleting, Nixon deleting tapes. He's using government property.
Yeah.
Same thing with Thug Meyer. He was using state-owned property for Ohio State business, and then mysteriously it disappears, but he doesn't remember it, and they don't know now who deleted it. And that's why I'm saying this hugely wide red line that he's standing in the middle of, I don't think this issue's over.
Yeah, and Gray and I were talking about this earlier. The biggest issue is that was a $38 million buyout.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to prove that. You're right. Common sense says he knew he didn't do anything on it, but the problem is we do have a legal system, and he can get $38 million from Ohio State because they're not gonna be able to fire him without cause,
right?
Unless they can prove that he did this, but. There seems like he crossed his T's and dotted his I's on this one.
But when you say they can prove it, it's anybody. And when I say everybody, it's everybody out there is looking for something. If it's a reporter, if it's Brett McMurphy, if it's just a student, everybody's looking for something because it's a guaranteed payday.
But if he texted or deleted texts
from his Ohio State,
from his own cell phone that is provided by Ohio State, regardless of whether he personally did it or his assistant did it or he doesn't remember, he is still solely responsible for the phone issued to him by Ohio State.
Well, they have it in the contract if he knew
there's like
about
a moral
any type
turpitude kind of.
Yeah, they have it in the contract. If something comes up with him about this issue and they can prove it, they can void his contract.
So would you call that a gray area or a scarlet and gray area?
I
couldn't resist.
I just think his gray and scarlet and gray, red line is now even wider. And I would love to know, because he's going to have to explain what medication he's on.
Why don't we know that by the way?
And what medication that it causes memory loss. Because how do you coach a football team on that level? And he's what, the 4th, 5th highest paid college coach, highest paid employee in the state of Ohio, and has a memory problem?
That's not good.
That sounds like it's time to retire.
It plays into a bigger narrative about what a college football coach should be, because many of these guys are the highest paid employees in their states, right?
Sure.
Nick
Probably
Saban,
almost
for
all
example.
of them that are in major states that have a major football program. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely, and it's a real concern. However, not all of these guys are worth $5 million a year in terms of being leaders of men. I think Urban Meyer thought he was doing the right thing in a lot of ways, but the problem is you can't really tell him no because he thinks he's doing it so well. It's a really tricky situation. Look,
that's
where
I think there may be a character flaw.
Yeah, because this happened before. This happened at Florida.
I mean, you don't have 20, 30 something players arrested during your tenure unless you've got a cultural problem at your program.
But nobody in this situation is without blame, right? Even the quote-unquote victim, she's not exactly on her own where she doesn't need to improve either. Everybody does, including us, all of us. All the reporting on this, and like you said before, Ohio State, if they wanted to fire Urban Meyer, it's going to cost them $38 million at least, guaranteed, period.
The
not firing him doesn't mean that
sign off on something like that. The board won't. They can't afford that. Well, they could, but they're not going to pay that
But
money.
not doing it doesn't mean that they value football more than they care about the protection of women, right? That's been the narrative, and that's frustrating.
If the AD was penalized without pay for 17 days or whatever, I know that's a slap on the wrist, but there's obviously something else at play.
Can the NCAA do anything? I'm not for that. I'm just wondering, can they do something? Can they do the whole?
It would take them 8 years.
Yeah.
Here's my whole thing. Should they?
Yeah.
Should they even
this is an
have
internal thing?
Like the NCAA, to me, gets involved when we need them to. When otherwise somebody would try to cover something up like this. I don't think that inherently Urban Meyer was like discreetly trying to cover up for the lowest paid employee on his team just because he knew his grandfather. He's not that valuable, right? He just wasn't.
I don't know, but if you can always claim that I'm on medication and I don't remember that, then it tells me it's time that you're not coaching major college football.
It's that legal excuse people say, I don't recall.
Right.
But I do that too.
But if I don't recall because of medication, then there needs to be more reported about what is he taking it for and what is the medication. Because then you're going to have a doctor come out and say, well, nobody should be coaching college football on that medication.
It's not a bad argument. Right? And again, I forget bands I've seen. Great, I thought you saw these guys. I'm like, yeah, I guess I forgot until I see them face to face. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've seen these guys. They were good. Or I forgot what they were like at all.
Well,
but I'm not getting paid $5 million a year by the state. I never will.
Is it going to make an impact on them?
Oh, I think so.
I think they're going
to
lose.
I think it's going to.
I think
this
a couple
might
of games because of it.
Well, I would also argue that there's no culture better suited to handle this, or at least maybe even benefit from it than Ohio State. They already have this us against the world mentality, right? Where if you're not with us, you're against us. That has helped them win football games for sure. However, I'll say this: when they had Tressel, they were great. They lost Tressel, replaced him with what was his name? Fickle? Luke Fickle,
I think. Yeah.
And they went 6 and 7. They lost the Gator Bowl. And the next year, they were bowl ineligible, but won 12 games. They would have played Notre Dame in the national title game that year if they were bowl eligible. That's the truth. They had a banner for that undefeated season. Yeah. Braxton Miller, they were outstanding.
They would have won. They would have won the title.
They would have won.
Well, they're loaded. I mean, they may use this as a motivator.
It's hard to know how kids will react to things like this.
And I guess it depends on Meyer and how he leads. We'll find out this year.
Sometimes
what a leader of young men he is, because if they lose 2 or 3 games and he doesn't come through this as a true leader of young men,
I don't think he is.
I don't think he is,
and that's
either.
what I have a real problem with. I don't think he's necessarily the worst guy out there. I think when you're $5 million a year, you need to be the absolute very best. I think he thought he had worked on himself enough, and he just plain hadn't. It's a lesson that I think, and I'll try to keep this short, that everybody can learn about this, that we all need more help. She needed more help. He needed more help. Urban Meyer needs more help. We all need to be a lot more accountable for the way we think, feel, act, and behave. And again, that's what's so great about college athletics. So you have people who get paid to help teach other people how to behave that way, how to change the way they perceive the world, and to not think it's us against the world. I really don't think that's a good cultural mentality, even if it helps win football games.
Well, to switch the news to more local, did you see that they released the starting lineup for the Clemson Furman game, and they got Kelly Bryant,
good choice,
as the starting quarterback, and Etienne is listed as the starting running back, and Feaster is third.
So with that said, and since I have not heard anybody anywhere say this, I'd like to make sure that we're real clear that we coined the phrase Travis ETNT.
ETNT.
He's explosive. Everybody uses explosive to define this kid.
Yeah.
They're not wrong. How did nobody figure out ETNT? That'll cost you 50 cents every time you use it out there, people. ESPN, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
He's the best running back since Spiller at Clemson.
We'll see.
Explosive, talented. And it doesn't mean he always puts it together, but he's the most explosive.
And he admitted himself last year that he didn't know the playbook. Great. To some people, that might sound like an excuse. To me, it sounds like providence. It sounds like you understand your role as a blocker.
Yeah.
But he's going to get the ball an awful lot more this year. And he won't be returning kicks either.
Some running backs aren't that physical specimen coming out of high school that other running backs are. And so I think he just wasn't physically ready, mentally ready. And there's no crime in that. A lot, I would say most freshmen are not ready for that. Not everyone's Adrian Peterson.
Or Herschel Walker.
Yes.
You know, that just
Derek Kearney. Roll Tide.
You know what? I heard today another great quote from Dabo Sweeney. Alabama's the smartest state in America. You know why? Because they have 4 A's and 2 B's.
Roll Tide.
That cracks me up.
I'll go with it. That's certainly who we put at quarterback at Alabama, right? Rhodes Scholar Greg McElroy. It's not like he was the best quarterback either, but he won a title.
So as far as news goes, that's kind of it. I mean, we've got a special guest here with special knowledge.
Oh, boy.
About, God, one of the schools that is just not one of my favorite. I don't have a hatred for them.
I understand.
But
it's
Notre
okay
Dame
if you do.
And Michigan, I can't stand their coach because he's warm and fuzzy like Steve Spurrier. So to me, that's just not, again, a good example. But the Notre Dame-Michigan game's a big deal.
That's a huge game for week 1.
I'm so excited.
These are 2 of the top, 5 biggest brands in college football?
Right.
I mean, I know people hate Notre Dame. They haven't been good for a long time.
But it's the brand.
It's the brand.
They've
brand
been good.
Matters.
They've been good.
They've had
I think
good teams.
The way people perceive them is that they've been overrated because they haven't been in the playoff.
Rudy.
Yeah.
Rudy.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. We have a movie. Not everyone has a movie.
Terrible alternate uniforms. I think we can all agree on that.
Oh, the New York Yankee ones?
Yeah.
You saw that. Oh, what a nightmare.
There's a reason why the
cannot.
Yankees are the Yankees and Notre Dame's
Notre Dame. I don't hate on baseball, but there's a reason why I don't look forward to the summer and I look forward to the fall. You don't need to introduce baseball to football.
The Yankees uniform, the pinstripes, are probably the most iconic uniform in American professional sports, and maybe almost worldwide.
Well, that and the Dallas Cowboys are the 2 things that are known everywhere.
Yeah, you're right. And the fact that we're playing in Yankee Stadium, which is stupid. Notre Dame's did this in Fenway a few years ago. It's stupid. But this is Under Armour, right? Yes, we're kind of the premier school that has Under Armour, and they have just had the worst uniforms.
I'm not laughing at you.
No,
I'm laughing with you, right?
No, yeah, it's awful. I mean, Notre Dame's uniforms, the blue and gold with the 24-karat, gold, almost gold chrome helmet, is so awesome.
With no names on the jerseys, no numbers, no stickers. I like it, but they look good.
They look good.
No shamrock stickers on the helmets.
No, don't give me that junk. Yeah, what are you doing? I mean, it's like my thing is Alabama doesn't mess things up. Michigan, I think their helmets are the best in college football. The Wolverine, yeah. And I hate Michigan. I'll explain when you get into that. But
it's the best old school.
No, yeah.
I would still say those Golden Dome helmets are great.
Right they're up there.
In high def, when you see that paint chip off and it like sparkles in the sunlight after a big hit, there's nothing like it.
I remember going to a couple games at night. It was Stanford Notre Dame. It was a night. It was late, not a night game, but it was darker later in the season. It was
later in the season.
Later
that's
in the
right.
season, so it got darker earlier. And there was a hit that Stanford guy put on, I believe, Everett Golson.
Okay.
You saw, we were in the stadium. You could see the gold chips fly, and I'm like, number one, that's awful. I hate to be Everett Golson. He left the game.
That's when he decided he was going to go to Florida State.
Yes,
right?
that's when he realized I'm going to cheat so I don't have to play another year here against Stanford.
Okay.
Yeah,
You said it.
yeah, I said it. And then you saw it, and you're like, that was really cool. And giving us these are the worst ones. They always do this one neutral site game a year. I think it's actually cool doing the neutral site game. I'm not pro Yankee Stadium.
When the Fighting Irish went to Ireland for
That
like
was
a
awesome.
Saturday morning game
That was
with
awesome.
an Irish football announcer.
It's 9
it was
o'clock
fantastic.
game. We rolled out of bed and watched football.
Everything was great except the uniforms. They were not good.
No, they were the regular white away uniforms in that
I
game.
thought that was where they had the big giant 3-leaf shamrock.
Not that year.
Okay.
They not that game. They did that against Maryland later in the season.
All right.
So, who's going to win the game? Notre Dame, Michigan.
Jumping right to the gun, Jay. Just can't wait.
Well, enough of all this
foreplay might be nice.
reminiscing.
Reminiscing, yeah. That's what we have as a Notre Dame
crap.
fan.
I mean, next thing you know, we're going to start talking about Arab Parsegan and
I do want to say this first. People forget. I say people. Maybe not everybody forgets how competitive and how important the Notre Dame-Michigan rivalry was. Those last, I think, 3 or 4 games came down to at least overtime, if not double overtime,
Yeah.
like end zone catches.
So,
the wins and losses went back and forth. It was spectacular.
The last game of the series was the 31-0 Notre Dame. That was the Brady Hoke last year. But before that, every single game, Michigan, playing in the Big House is actually Notre Dame's house of horrors. We haven't won there in a long time.
Have you ever been there, by the way?
I have not. I've been to Ann Arbor, but I've never been into the game there. And we're in South Bend, but this rivalry, there's not a team Notre Dame fans hate more than Michigan. And let me explain that. Our arch rival is USC.
That's true.
And the team that we've become more of a rival with lately has been Stanford.
That's right.
But Michigan is hatred. First of all, you got to think about the institution. Michigan is Harvard of the West for a long time. Great school. Notre Dame's a great school. I grew up in South Bend. Half the people I knew were Notre Dame fans. If you were not a Notre Dame fan, I shouldn't say that. 80 to 90% were. But, I mean, we're right on the border of Michigan, South Bend. There's a lot of Michigan fans.
Is that right?
Lots of Michigan fans.
I never thought about
I mean,
that.
it's a huge deal.
Well, I've been to both, but I never noticed.
So Chicago, there's Michigan bars everywhere.
Sure.
There's Notre Dame bars
Chicago
everywhere.
has it all, though.
Yeah.
But I don't see Notre Dame fans in Ann Arbor.
No. But
You know
I
what
mean, but South Bend is kind of a weird town, it's unique. It's unique. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I grew up there. I don't want to. I can bash it because I grew up there. But I mean, it's Notre Dame, and it's kind of a Green Bay Packer feel, but there's still just a lot of Michigan fans because it's right there, and Michigan's been around a long time. This is the game Notre Dame wants to win more than any game on the schedule. This is the game that, besides Ohio State, Michigan wants to win more on the schedule. I don't feel good about it.
You shouldn't.
I don't feel good at all. I think we're going to lose. I actually like this Notre Dame team. I think the defense is going to be very stout. I don't think losing Elko is that big of a deal. I'm not convinced he was this great defensive coordinator.
You're not? I liked him a lot, but I'm with you
from
that losing him isn't the outlier.
No, because we went from Brian Van Gore, the worst defensive coordinator in the history of sports, to he had players. I mean, he recruited well. I mean, if you saw Brian Van Gorder's players, these players made the NFL. They were terrible in college, and they made the NFL. Why? Because they were horribly used. I think all of a sudden you found a good defensive coordinator who brought in a good system. His right-hand man's keeping the system there. I think the system is good enough. Yeah, we'll probably take a little bit of a step back, but the talent is there. We have NFL players on this defense, but we don't have the NFL players that Michigan has. And I think Michigan having Shea Patterson, Jim Harbaugh, I know you hate Jim Harbaugh, right?
I just think he's a rude, uninspiring college football coach.
Yes, I agree with all those statements. I think he's also, though, a really smart coach.
Yeah.
I think he's really a good coach that if he's had a competent quarterback in the last 2 years, they win the Big Ten. People forget they outplayed Ohio State, who has just enormous talents, and Urban Meyer, all these 5-star wide receivers. They outplayed him 2 years in a row. And if it came down to quarterback being so terrible, was 2 years ago in Ohio State, they had 2 pick sixes against Michigan, or one that was taken to the 1.
That's right.
They dominated that game.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Last year they were the youngest team in college football. They're all back. I'm smelling roadkill. I'm using the word roadkill. I think Notre Dame's offensive line, they lost a lot. I think Wimbush is actually a bad college football coach. He's a highly talented player, big arm,
So if he
super
has
athletic.
a great day, that makes a difference.
If he has a great day, we'll win the game. But, but that's not going to happen.
That would be a
that's
sincere
college.
surprise.
That's college football, though. You know, it's like Syracuse beating Clemson last year. You end up, you go 16 for 16 in the first quarter and a half of a football game, and you're pretty much going to be beating anybody if you're at a certain level of college talent.
The flip side of that, I agree with that. The flip side of that, though, that's one of those games where Clemson's kind of stumbling into it. It's a Friday night game. Clemson's not.
Friday the 13th,
Yes.
don't forget.
Syracuse,
Quarterback
this is
goes
their
down.
season. Notre Dame and Michigan, this is each one knows what's at
this
stake.
is a big deal.
This is a big deal.
This jumps them up in the conversation for a while.
Michigan wins this game, they're going to the playoff. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I think because
Wow.
we talked about Ohio State.
Yeah.
We think that's going to be a problem. I think the Big Ten's good, but Michigan's better than Penn State. They don't have. I think
What's the spread? 1 point?
it's 1.5 Michigan. It keeps going back. Yeah.
Oh, weird. So that's nothing, essentially. That's you're
Right.
just betting on who you think
So
is
really,
going to win.
which
Yeah, it's a
which
pick'em game.
quarterback, which offense has a couple of good plays over 2 great defenses?
Yeah,
That's what it
true.
comes down
Yeah,
to.
that's what it comes down to.
So maybe a special teams or maybe a turnover is really going to decide.
I think it's a turnover.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's weak on the left side of the offensive line.
Lost 2 first-round top 10 picks to the
I
league
will
last
say
year.
this: Notre Dame has better quarterback depth. So, for example, if you
When
lose
Bush
your
goes
starter, you can take in Book, who isn't going to be completely unserviceable.
I think Book should be the starter.
I agree, but what are you going to
And so
do?
Michigan doesn't have that.
Wimbush is a graduate.
Correct.
He spent the entire summer learning how to throw the football in California. He's
Apparently
done.
didn't work, though.
That's right. It sounds like he hasn't really improved.
Yeah,
Well, we'll find out.
Well, Brian Kelly said, this is what's discouraging. Brian Kelly said in a press conference last week that
Coach of Notre Dame.
coach of Notre Dame, who I don't really think is that good of a coach, but that's beside the point. Actually, that's not beside the point. That's another reason why I think Michigan will win. But he said we're not going to be running a 2-quarterback system, but he alluded to the fact that they're going to have a quick trigger, which means if you have 2 quarterbacks, the old phrase, I think was it Bill Parcells used to say that? I forget. Someone
you
used to
have
say
two
if 2 quarterbacks,
you
you
really have
actually have
none.
0.
Yeah.
I think Book is smart. If Book had a bigger arm,
Roll Tide.
If
Roll what?
Roll
what?
Tide. We have that problem in Alabama right now.
Tide Pods.
Tide Pods.
But no,
Delicious.
in reality, I think it's going to be a 27-13 game. I don't see how we're going to score. I just don't.
That's what it comes down to, doesn't it?
I
I
just
think
don't think-
Harbaugh is naturally going to take more risks than Brian Kelly in any game ever, and I think that's going to play into their favor.
I think they'll take shots downfield, but Brandon Wimbush has just shown it's not accurate.
In game 1, I expect him to hold on to the football a little bit more too. Take his little slant routes.
I just
and
don't.
Short routes.
I don't. He can't hit short routes, and I just don't think the offensive line will be gelled enough. I think this is a good Notre Dame team. I think
Yeah.
it's a very good team. I just think week 1, if this game was week 6, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with it. But I'm not. I don't.
Well, the only other game besides this that's really up there at the top of everything is the Washington-Auburn.
Oh yeah.
And I really believe in my heart that Auburn's going to win this game. And if they do, the implications are just like Notre Dame, Michigan. Washington can either become part of the elite of college football by winning this game, or if they lose, they're still going to be the redheaded stepchild of not being considered able to play against the big Southern boys that play in the SEC.
Yeah. Washington's the Pac-12's only chance.
Who was the
There.
best defensive player in the Pac-12 last year, Davey?
I'm blanking out on his name. He's the guy in Washington.
Yeah,
I'm just blanking out on him.
It's Vita Vea.
Yeah.
Yes, he was fantastic. First round. Where did he go in the first round? It's incidental. He was like top 10 for sure. They don't have anybody left like that. Auburn lost a lot of guys on offense. Stidham can't really handle pressure. Clemson held Auburn to 15 positive yards in the second half last year.
47
He
times.
just didn't
11 or something like that. It was something absurd.
One short
it's
of
like
the record.
NCAA 14 on rookie
mean.
mode or whatever.
We all owe him an apology.
Yeah,
That was
very mean.
brutal. Yeah, he got back up.
I believe it was definitely one of the worst offensive performance.
Well, they've worked on him in the offseason.
That's true, but
specifically of getting rid of the football fast.
So stepping up into the pocket.
Right, and and same that Kelly Bryant would run into this every now and again. A lot of good quarterbacks in college where they hadn't learned yet. 3 seconds has gone by. You have to do something.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many of those, and
Please
he was the
listen to
perfect
that, Brandon
example.
Wimbush, please.
He was the perfect example of Stidham just couldn't remember to get rid of the football.
But both teams have very good quarterbacks. I would
Yes.
say high ceiling quarterbacks. Is that a better way to describe both of them?
Yeah, I mean Jake Locklear. Yeah, I mean he's really good, and he played Alabama, and he didn't look that good, but he was also hurt in that game in the playoff 2 years ago. So I think I don't know. I like the Chris Peterson versus anyone almost besides maybe Nick Saban or Dabo Swinney or some of those other coaches. I just love him as a coach. Remember when he came down to Georgia with Boise State, and how
that was also opening week. Yeah,
the way he kept them off balance. I think he can do that.
I miss Kellen Moore. I love Kellen Moore.
That's the
so
you don't
great.
have Kellen Moore.
I just wonder in the fourth quarter
do they wear
when
down?
the big boys are out there with Auburn and they're too deep at all the big boy positions, and if they're rotating and playing hard and tough and that just go for broke physical football, is Washington going to be 10 or 14 points ahead going into the fourth quarter to be able to survive that? That's the big
What's
deal.
the number? I think you have to be up by 14. I think you're right. I think Auburn will just wear you down, and
It ought to be interesting. I think it's one of
Yeah.
it's one of those games, just
Interesting.
like Notre Dame, Michigan, where it's close and it's really hard to say one's better than the other.
I think it's a good bisection of
Right.
college football fans in America. Because if you love defense, you're going to be watching Notre Dame, Michigan.
Right.
If you just like football and you want to see points scored, it's Auburn, Washington. That's going to be definitely a higher scoring game. It's in Atlanta where Auburn lost the last two, Georgia and national championship winning asterisk UCF Knights.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
they go 0-3 in Atlanta?
I don't think so.
And really, as far as the other two games that of note are the Miami LSU.
Oh,
And
is that Monday? Is that actually on Labor Day?
I think so.
Yeah.
And that to me seems kind of odd because either Miami's going to crush them or LSU's going to surprise everybody and play a complete football game, which I have a hard
I
time.
don't know. I've kind of LSU. I mean, they're the team that had just enormous amount of talent, and I think it's gone now.
I'm glad we're talking about this game because Miami was the turnover machine last year with the chain. It was exciting. It was great for the sport. You don't have to love Miami, but it was so good for the sport.
Oh,
it was
right.
fun to watch.
I'm a Notre Dame fan. We got
all of a sudden
killed
people are
by it,
watching
but it was
highlights on
cool.
defense.
It was cool what they were doing.
And LSU has. Well, they just lost two quarterbacks, but they're real happy with the two that stayed. They're going to be throwing the ball allegedly more than ever against Miami's defense.
Yeah,
it's
and
exciting to say the least for me.
LSU is always talented, but the last couple of years, we've talked about this before, they look uncoordinated. Like there's not a balletic kind of art form to the way LSU plays football.
They used to just pin their ears back and just come at you. So they would
Old school.
Yeah, so
Just flying.
the offense was a little prehistoric at times, but the defense just was insane.
Right.
I remember watching Johnny Manziel rip up all these teams. He didn't rip up LSU. He got pushed around in that game because they could just fly to the ball. They don't have those athletes anymore, and you're right. They don't seem like they're
just
moving the right way.
It's like an uncomfortable team to watch. Like there's not a. I don't know if that's lack of practicing a certain way or a lack of the way they do things, but it just seems like stutter steps all the time.
Les Miles had that Bobby Bowden type of thing where it was basically, let's not try to get a penalty, but it's okay if you do.
Oh, God. When your kickers are getting penalties,
Yeah,
you know you're at LSU. They were never boring to watch
No,
under
they
Les
weren't.
Miles. I miss Coach Miles.
But I think Miami may beat up on LSU.
They may, but I disagree.
I don't like.
It should be a good game.
I saw the Clemson-Miami game in person last year. The talent, Miami's tiny. I know Clemson's enormous and big and fast. I understand that, but
Miami doesn't look like the old Miami.
No,
anymore.
it didn't look
tiny, and they have problems with logistics at their university with their coach.
Yeah.
But they're going up. LSU has gone
up.
the other way. The state has been. Don't forget, when they wanted to hire Jimbo Fisher, it became a big story because they were trying to keep it under wraps, but they simply didn't have the money.
Right.
Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator at LSU, and Alabama won the title while Nick Saban was the head coach. Will Muschamp was the defensive coordinator. It's not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But now he's at A&M, and LSU is just – this season is important for LSU, but I'm not sure – I just don't know how to call it at all.
It doesn't seem like there's a soul there.
It's a really tough time.
It feels like
for
they
the Bayou Bengals.
hired an intern coach, which is what they did. There was nothing, but they don't have the money to do it.
However, like Coach Spurrier, there's nothing boring about Ed Orgeron when he talks.
It makes sense.
He sounds like a Joe Dirt commercial, right?
He does sound, yeah.
David Spade out there impersonating a guy from the Bayou.
Now,
boy.
the other game that, and this needs to launch us into the ACC talk, to me, the Florida State-Virginia Tech game is big. As a Clemson fan, I think people are so underrating Florida State this year.
I agree. Thank you very much.
Because they are loaded. They got their good quarterback coming back. They got a backup quarterback that, he got beat up because of offensive line problems last year. But I tell you, a healthy Florida State can beat anyone in the country. And Virginia Tech is on the rise. So, does this turn into Virginia Tech? This is going to determine a lot of the structure of power in the ACC.
Yeah.
It's understated, right? Nobody's talking about this game.
Right.
I'm super excited about it.
I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
What did Florida State go? 4-8 last year? 5-7?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, it was something like that, but it
It's
didn't.
not that kind of podcast,
But if
Davey.
it's true. But they have way too much talent to be like last year. You had the quarterback injury. Jimbo Fisher was out the door.
Right.
They were getting tired of him. The players kind of quit on him because he kind of had his foot out the door for a couple years now.
And the university was not happy with Jimbo Fisher's style of offense. That was a big problem, and it ultimately led to him being kicked out of there.
And a lot of it was
he was Mac Brown.
I think Jimbo Fisher can rub people the wrong way.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he does. Yeah.
I think the new coach down there, there's going to be a camaraderie that they did not have under Jimbo Fisher.
And Taggart is known for offense. It's
And
exactly what Florida State wanted.
They got one of the best running backs.
What's his name? Cam Makers is the place to be.
I mean, they got
Wow.
They got talent,
Oh, yeah, they do. I think the offensive line is just a perennial problem, especially against going up against Clemson. But people are underrated. They're not going to go 4-8.
This game will teach us how good Florida State is.
I think you're going to see a good Florida State team that's going to be motivated, getting a new coach. Virginia Tech lost a ton.
They did
last year. I think their new coach is really good. I think it's a program that's going to get back to where they were. I think they're going to be competing with Miami in that division for a long time, but I just don't know if it's this year. I think they just lost too much, but they got a good future. They're getting good players in there. They got a good coach.
Do you think Taggart has what it takes to make FSU yearly competitive in their division every year?
He can recruit. Yes. You're at Florida State. You should be able.
They didn't have a problem recruiting. That wasn't the problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true. But it never seemed. Is Jimbo Fisher kind of an overrated coach? We've talked about that before.
I think he wouldn't be in a different decade. I think he's
maybe
not living in the right era right now.
And he had that team that won. They had James Winston. They had all these wide receivers. That was just too good of a team. Where a good coach will win the championship.
We're going to find out a lot about Taggart all of these 2 games into the season, we'll know Florida State, holy cow.
Florida State comes to South Bend
or,
late November.
I know.
That's right.
Or actually,
and
early November.
That's
a bad
reminds me.
timing for Florida State. That's too cold.
I know we're talking about ACC. Notre Dame is kind of a semi-ACC member basketball or whatever.
It's an asterisk.
It's
They
an
play
asterisk.
5 or 6 games a year.
yeah.
in the
I
ACC.
wanted to say this earlier about Notre
ACC
Dame.
light.
I read another article just today talking about how the coach was trying to help them through chaos because they struggled in November, losing a couple of games, and they got in hostile environments, and the players couldn't deal with it. And so he's put helicopters on the field. He actually made them on a goal line stance use a soccer ball and just sent them in and said, we need chaos or whatever, trying to change it up, increase the noise level, make things uncomfortable for the players because they're struggling with being nervous Nellies in November. You know, and there are a number of teams that Miami did it last year.
What?
Where you get into November and all of a sudden they're suddenly not as good.
Can you play with expectations?
Right.
Yeah.
Can you play under the, you know, there is something about some coaching staffs, and it's not necessarily that some are so much better than others, but they're definitely better at prepping the kids to how you deal with it. You know, you think about when you have to go play Virginia Tech at home, which is a scary thing. You have to go play in Happy Valley for a whiteout at night.
Ooh. Or Morgantown.
You know, Morgantown. You got to go, you know, to Clemson for a big game, and there's a big crowd. You got to go to Alabama for a home game, and it's a big crowd. I mean, there's some places that have to be pretty damn intimidating, a little annoying. I mean, Clemson's going to run into it when they play A&M.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a
crazy
That's a different kind of
We'll
environment.
talk about that next week, but I will tell you right now, I think A&M does that better than anybody.
Right. And so the
They
team
make
that
people dizzy.
the
with
team that
whole
always
cheer.
scared
Dizzy,
me
hot, yeah, it's bad. It's
as
not healthy.
as a lifelong Clemson fan, it always bothered me playing at Virginia Tech. That whole Enter Sandman thing.
Wasn't that the game that...
And like the stands move.
I love that, by
and
the
it's
way.
night.
Yeah.
And then the fireworks and the smoke, and there is a haze, and it's got kind of a Hades kind of satanic feel at Virginia Tech. Plus having a turkey as a mascot.
That's right. A hokey bird,
and
baby.
that dark burgundy color.
this-
There is something kind of off about all that. I don't really want to go drive through.
They wave their keys around.
I don't really want to go drive through that area of the country at night.
No. Do you remember the game that Tommy Bowden?
I don't want you
almost
behind the
got
wheel at all.
Didn't get fired after the game, but I think he might have gotten fired after the season. It was when Clemson was a good team and they went up to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had like 4 special teams touchdowns, and you're just like, wow.
It was
happened?
unnerving. And
It was
that place,
they were unnerved.
that place bothers me. Like watching it on television, I don't ever want to go to a game.
No, but I think that's the thing about Tabo Sweeney. He wins big games now. I mean, they win all their big games.
Well, one thing about South Carolina that just cracked me up reading in the news today was that the Beyonce concert tore up the grass
First of
at
all,
the field.
It's like
I read
Soldier
that.
Field in
They're
Chicago. yeah.
replacing all of the grass today
Oh boy.
at Williams-Brice Stadium.
Oh boy.
And, you know, God bless the Gamecocks. You know,
you heard it here, folks.
God bless the Gamecocks. And I say that with every Southern intent. I can't stand the Gamecocks. I can't stand there's an ego involved with the South Carolina, University of South Carolina Gamecocks that is based on no reality other than a 4-year stretch of good luck.
I'd love to hear an acoustic rendition of Sandstorm.
But it's coastal.
Was it 2001
Yes.
Space Odyssey as well?
Is Coastal going to come in And is the grass going to go flying because it's only been sitting there in the stadium? No. Is it going to have any effect on the game whatsoever?
As long as it doesn't rain and horribly in the next 2 days, I think they should be fine.
I kind of hope it does.
Oh, that'd be really
I want
fun.
it to be.
Remember when the Steelers had that 10 years ago? They replaced it and they had a hurricane came in.
Steelers, isn't that a pro team? Yuck.
Are they still playing?
Oh, 6 Super Bowls.
Well, we saw a game last year where at the goal line the turf was coming up. And it became a problem. I say turf. It was AstroTurf, and all that nasty
fake.
Pulverized rubber was everywhere.
Yeah. Notre Dame, NC State 2 years ago.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Nuts.
It was unbelievable. It was the hurricane, and then instead of just waiting to play it on Sunday like they should have, they played it in the hurricane.
It became a danger to the players, and whatever. Yeah, they play football. They can handle it.
By the way,
I hope that doesn't happen.
Brian Kelly threw the ball
Price.
40 times in a hurricane. Just throwing it out there. This is why another reason why we won't beat Michigan.
There you go.
So with everybody playing cupcakes other than the ones we've talked about, so it's kind of insignificant. I mean, Clemson Furman would be fun. And one thing I would like to point out, Gray Thompson and me, Jay Spivey, for the first time ever, have press passes and will be on the field at the Clemson Furman football game.
That's right.
This Saturday at kickoff 12:20 on the fête broadcasting network.
If you weren't planning to watch college football last year, now you have an excuse. You can look for us on the sidelines.
We're going to find the TV cameras, and we're going to be jumping up and down in front of them so much they're going to have to kick us out. But the whole idea as a Clemson fan, having never been on the field during a game, when I got the email, it was emotional to me.
I got goosebumps just thinking about it right now. I am so stoked.
Because there's a family history of my mom was Miss Taps at Clemson, so she rode the float out at halftime during a game. My dad was in Pershing Rifles and cadet commander at Clemson, so he was out on the field at a Clemson game. My sister went there. I don't think she was out on the field, but the idea that I get to stand on the same field that my father stood on in the late 50s, and I'm a fan, and I get to watch him run down the hill, and I can videotape that on my phone, and we'll be taking pictures. Honest to God, I'm going to be in different states of teary-eyed the entire time we're there. It chokes me up talking about it. So, yeah, it's fun, and I'm not the rabid orange wearing jump up and down Clemson fan.
No, but for you to get emotional like that, the only other time I've seen you do it is at the Greenville Scottish games. It's obviously really important to you. But
well, Amazing Grace by 100 bagpipes is a pretty big deal. But this to me is
it's magnificent.
It's like a bucket list kind of thing.
Yeah.
And here we go.
And I'm gonna try to email Hunter Renfrow this week and see if we can set up talking to him after the game, since we interviewed him a couple of years ago.
Hunter Renfrow, isn't he the quarterback that left?
Hunter Renfrow?
Oh, that's Hunter Johnson.
Yeah, that's Hunter.
How is Hunter Renfrow still playing? He seems like he's been there for like a decade.
When we talked to him 2 years ago,
he's Will Greer's age.
He is a slight, thin, not all that tall, but extremely intelligent young man who is respectful, called me Mr. Spivey the whole time, said yes sir the whole time.
Wow.
And I can tell you can tell by the look.
A little too much respect for my taste.
The look in his eyes when, and I said, just, kind of walking around with him, I said, I know you're quick and stuff, but these guys are huge, and some of these huge guys are fast. And he goes, yeah, but I am quick. And when I stop being able to run my routes and do my job, I'll know that it's time to not play anymore. So he would play in the pros if he got the opportunity. He would go try that. But I'll tell you one thing, 20 years from now, he is going to be one of the best college football coaches because he knows that stuff. He is friends with one of Dabo's sons and the family. His dad was a coach and an athletic director. And I would not be surprised to see Coach Renfrow 10, 20 years from now, one of the major colleges in America, because he's that smart. He knows that stuff.
Well, the fact that he can get, 2 touchdowns in the national championship game against first-round draft pick corners?
It's worse than that.
I mean, with his stature,
when they were at that goal line drive with, 6 seconds left, Tony Elliott said, where are we going to go? Are we going to throw the ball to our Clemson's #1 receiver of all time? Nope. We're throwing the ball to Hunter Renfrow for a reason.
Because he's going to do the right thing.
That guy has Velcro hands.
He's going to be standing in the spot
Yep.
that you called the play to be.
He represents everything I love about the sport of college football. I
think
love Hunter Renfrow.
I mean, we've all been to football games. We've all been to all kinds of football games. But there is something to me about standing on the field that I think they are going to seem bigger, faster, and more violent than I ever dreamed of.
It's true. What you get when you watch football on TV is terrible camera angles in a lot of these games. Texas A&M, for example, you're practically looking down. It looks like a microscope. Like, you can't tell how big these guys are. You just can't see it.
There are a bunch of amoebas running around.
It's maybe not that bad now that we have high def, but a lot like Maryland, that camera angle, that they don't have a good camera angle there.
Right.
Hopefully that's going to start to change. I'd love to start seeing more games behind the quarterback on those wires, but until then, you can't tell how big these guys are, and they're all huge. Jay, you and I are both big dudes, so to speak, right? We're not beating anybody up on the sidelines out there. We're going to be timid.
I just can't wait to be a part of all that, and to kind of, if you've got some other stuff that we need to talk about during the podcast, let's go ahead and get into it. And, next week we're going to give our impressions, but we are certainly going to be posting a ton of pictures on Instagram, Facebook. I want to shoot a little video on my phone with a stabilizer, especially them running down the hill and some plays. So
with no balloons.
I'd kind of like to come up with a little short video compilation that we'll put together of us being silly on the field watching the games. And, with our little setup, we could probably do a little commentary with each little play that we're showing. I think that's going to be just, to me personally, it just seems like the greatest thing in the world that we get to go do that.
Well, the greatest thing in the world to me, Jay Spivey, is Jay Spivey.
Well,
the second greatest thing is college football. The only thing I will miss college football for is Albino Skunk Music Festival and being on the field at a game. I say being on the field. Being at a game. I can handle not watching football all day if I'm watching one game in person.
That's going to be a long day. I mean, I want to get there early.
It's a commitment.
I want to stay through the whole thing. I mean, I want to soak it in. And, it's just the Furman game. And Furman will play tough.
I want to get there at midnight and just wave middle fingers at August and say, bye-bye. It's September now. Let's have fun.
So, to the Clemson Athletic Department and Clemson University in general, I'd like to say a very sincere thank you.
Thank you very much.
For approving our press passes for the Furman game this Saturday. Because to me, y'all have made an old grumpy curmudgeon very happy.
It's hard to do. And they've made it easy, too.
Yes.
That interactive map, I won't get into all that, but it's been really terrific working with them.
I am thrilled.
I've been all over the place to college football games, and, a lot of these lists say Clemson is the best place to go watch one, right? Here's my personal opinion is that they're right. It's truly the best because they let you go in, they let you come out, they let you on the field at the end of the games, which a lot of places don't do and are starting to introduce. But to be on the field during a live game, can't beat it. Can't beat it. And I don't know where else we could do it.
I get to hear Tiger Rag and watch them run down the hill. I can be standing there taking pictures of it. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're at Notre Dame or Michigan at the Big House or anywhere in America. If you're a fan and you get to do that, I mean, I'm emotional about stuff like that anyway. I mean, when I saw, I'm not an Ohio State fan, but when I saw Jack Nicklaus come out and dot the I at an Ohio State game,
that was awesome.
That got to me because I'm such a Jack Nicklaus fan. So all the schools have these great traditions, and so there are little stories of my mom and dad's that. I grew up with. So, to me...
You never grew up, by the way. Let's be clear.
My late father is going to be there on the field with me, and that, to me, is kind of an emotional deal.
It's hard to beat.
I love it.
I walked up to Taj Boyd after a game a few years ago. I really thought he was going to have some sort of a Heisman campaign that year, but walking past him, I felt short, and I'm 6'4". He's a big dude. And then I saw him again this past summer. Man, that dude he's a dude. Yeah. He's a dude for sure.
Well, that's just going to be wonderful. Is there anything else y'all would like to discuss, talk about?
They announced the starter is going to be Kelly Bryant, which is good.
That is a big deal.
And Alabama announced the starter.
Right choice too.
Who started for Alabama?
Well, it's four names. It's Tua Tagovailoa / Jalen Hurts.
Wow.
There's a slash, and it's not in alphabetical order, which is a little weird, but
that's just.
It's problematic. If you start Jalen, he gets booed. If you put him in the second half, he gets booed even more, which is bad news.
If Jalen throws an interception against a low-ranked, unknown team, people are going to go nuts. And that's really unfair to Jalen, who's been such a stellar player.
He has.
Same thing with Kelly Bryant. Furman intercepts a pass on the second play from scrimmage. Man, there's going to be kind of a quiet time at Clemson where people are going to be like, and it's always comes down to, like everything else in sports, what have you done for me lately?
Sort of. I think the way Kelly Bryant performed last year was a big side effect of the defense. It's going to be the same this year, as it should be. That's no fault to Kelly Bryant. Look, Jalen Hurts is Alabama's all-time single-season touchdown leader. You know who has more touchdowns in a season than Jalen Hurts? Kelly Bryant. That's the truth.
Yeah,
They're both not bad.
Right.
Jalen Hurts stood out because of Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin turned Blake Sims, who was a running back.
Yeah.
He was recruited as a running back. He turned Blake Sims into, at that time, the single-season touchdown
He
leader.
used Jalen Hurts in a way that Jalen Hurts may not have gotten used without Lane Kiffin this past season.
What Lane Kiffin did was get guys wide open. I love Jalen Hurts. Let's be real clear about that. I think he represents the university well. He's very smart. He is the quintessential Alabama quarterback under Nick Saban. You don't have to win the game on the quarterback's feet. You have to make sure he just doesn't turn it over left and right. Look, let's think about who else Alabama's had. Jake Coker. What's he doing now?
Right.
A.J. McCarron, he's got a job and he broke his collarbone. Greg McElroy, I love Greg, but, none of these guys were the pinnacle of the position, period. Jalen Hurts is no exception, but Lane Kiffin just gave all of those guys kind of a lot more juice. One season with Brian Daboll, and everybody says Jalen Hurts can't throw. I think it exacerbates his negative aspects, right? And Tua has all those positives as well. He's not just a really strong athletic performer. He's smart. He's incredibly smart. That's been the outlier for Alabama quarterbacks.
What we need is 2 years from now to be able to jump ahead when Jalen's gone.
Put this in a time capsule.
And Tua is the starter. And if Tua is breaking all the records and all that kind of stuff and just does incredible, then Alabama was blessed to have had two great guys. And the same thing with Clemson. This is Kelly Bryant's last year.
Blessed for sure, but Alabama quarterbacks, God, I don't mean to sound cynical. Alabama quarterbacks, the best quarterbacks in the nation would be sort of wasted at Alabama because they don't necessarily.
They would be because of Nick Saban.
Tua's also a runner, and his
Nick Saban
stats are not all that dissimilar from Jalen Hurts.
I agree,
I think having an offensive coordinator who wants to take advantage of those unique skill sets that nobody has had under Saban at quarterback is going to be a surprise if it happens. That's why, again, I don't think Alabama covers the spread against Louisville. It's 25 points. Beating Louisville by 21 points is a big win.
Right.
25 is too much to ask. I think Louisville's going to be able to keep it closer than 25.
There's something in my head that always associates Nick Saban with being the Dean Smith of football. There's only one person that could keep Michael Jordan under 20 points a game, and that was Dean Smith.
Yes.
And so
I'm close, yeah.
But it's on the backbone of the defense. That defines who the team is in the same way that Kelly Bryant's going to run into that this season. He's going to, again, he had more touchdowns last year than Jalen Hurts, who set records the year before. But it's on the defense, who's going to give Clemson better field position in a way that Alabama is defined by as well, but is replacing so much on that side of the ball. We're all looking for the offense to define Alabama, and that would be, to me, a big surprise. It's never happened.
Because that ain't Saban.
It's not.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different this year. I think what we've seen with Alabama in the last several years is just the enormous talent they've had on the wide receiver. You now have a guy that can get him the ball. I think the reason why Jalen Hurts will not be the starter by week 4, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying that he should. Actually, I think he should not be the starter. The reason why is because Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, but those wide receivers, you get them in ball in space, they can just make special things happen. He can't consistently get him the ball, hit him in stride. And that's why they replaced him in the Georgia game. It's not that Hurts is a bad quarterback. He's not the quarterback to beat a team like Georgia. Tua it was.
That's exactly right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, he makes the players at Alabama better. I think Tua will.
With that said, that's why right now I have Clemson at number 1. And I think after the A&M game, Clemson's number 1 with a bullet.
And mid-season, or not mid-season, I would think once we get through with September, we're going to know so much about so many of these quarterbacks and teams. Clemson with the A&M game, and same thing with Georgia, South Carolina. I mean, there are tons of opportunities for this thing to get really shaken up this year. But if the main 5 or 6 teams win like they're supposed to, it could be rather boring.
I disagree.
But it's college football.
It's
so.
not going to be
never
boring for me.
happens the way
no
you think
way.
it's going to.
No, there's always going to be some.
Did you see Rice win at the end with a field goal? Of course you didn't.
Of course I did.
No. So
they
good.
beat Hawaii?
No, they weren't. That was Colorado State, Jay. Pay attention.
Well, I really appreciate y'all coming to do this.
I appreciate you having me.
It's worth stomaching the smell when we're this close.
Well, thanks to Velo Fellow, thanks to Matt Morgan, thanks to Sit and Spin Recording Studios.
Let's not forget to tell everybody to try to beat us in the Ion Greenville Pick'em contest.
That's right.
IonGreenville.net. Go there, check it out. Great prizes, including community taps, giving away beer. You can't beat that.
I'm telling you, they got all kinds of people involved. So pick against everybody with the IonGreenville.net app. And if you want to know who's playing where music-wise, that app tells you on the Fête Mobile Music tab. Also, keep an eye out for the September issue of Fête Magazine. And I guess we'll see you next week, and that'll be after some big damn football.
I can't wait. Let's go get sunburnt Saturday, Jay. Let's do it.
GTIGERS. No, that's great. See y'all next week.
Thanks, Jay.
It really doesn't matter what you think. All right? And it really doesn't matter what you say.
Hey,